Peace and blessings, family. Today, we have an amazing guest, the Honorable Pastor Robert Turner, who is the pastor of the historical church, Vernon A.M.E. Church, which saved countless of Black lives during the Black Wall Street Massacre by providing security and aid. Peace and blessings, Pastor. How you doing?
Brother, I'm extremely humbled to be in your presence and to participate in this. I've been following you for a while and just thankful to be on your show.
I appreciate you, family. Yeah, likewise. I've been following you a while, and I can't tell you how much I'm almost nervous because I'm just so grateful for your time. I don't even get nervous, but I just been following your work for a while, sir, and I just really appreciate what you do. Now, you're a well-known champion for reparations, but you're an advocate for acknowledging what happened in the Black Wall Street Massacre. Where are you originally from, sir?
I'm originally from Tuskegee, Alabama, born and raised. In fact, I was born in the same hospital, John Andrew Hospital, which is the oldest, the first Black and the last Black hospital in Alabama. And it was the hospital in which the United States government gave syphilis to Black men from 1932 to 1972. That's the very hospital I was born in just 10 years later. And my parents met there at the school and they stayed. And yeah, it's a historic city, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, birthplace of Rosa Parks,
Right.
site where Tuskegee Airmen learned to fly, birthplace of Lionel Richie, Commodores. Um, just a very historic place. And it's not maybe 12,000 people that live in the city.
Would you say being around all those historical figures made you so passionate about Black people today and the liberation of Black people?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was palpable, liberation, theology, activism, it was just ingrained in us from an early age. We learned about the Go Million versus Lightfoot, which is a local civil rights leader in Tuskegee, which changed outlawed gerrymandering in the country. Really, it was so people in Tuskegee just we're bred and when we're raised to think critically about government, society, and we're given this idealistic notion that one person can change the world.
Right. And now you're the pastor of the historical Vernon A.M.E. Church. And this church is amazing for so many reasons. But one of the reasons is because it's was it the only last Black-owned structure left during Black Wall Street? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, it is the only thing we have on Black Wall Street, Greenwood Avenue, that was before the massacre, built by Black people that we still have on Greenwood Avenue after the massacre. And Vernon is the oldest continuous Black landowner in the Black Wall Street district. We've owned our parcel of land since 1908,
1908.
and we
Wow.
still own it today.
Mm,
In spite of what the city has tried to do as far as gentrification and urban, they call renewal, we call it urban removal. They did present us with a check, about 30 plus, about 20 plus years ago in the early 2000s.
yes, sir.
But we did not sell. We didn't
Mm.
want to sell.
That's important. I mean, you hear that a lot today. Don't sell grandma's house, buy Black, keep it in the neighborhood. So I mean, that's an honorable thing you did because something like that, we have to keep control of that. That's historical. That's you can't even put that into words, and yeah, we have to make sure that you and your people stay in control of that. How did you make your way from Alabama to Tulsa, if you don't mind me asking?
No, it's a great question. I'm a part of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the oldest Black denomination in America, started in 1787 by Richard Allen, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In fact, 6 and Lombard Street, where Mother Bethel sits, It's one of the oldest piece of properties held by Black people in the country,
Yes,
and
sir.
we've owned it since 1780.
Mhm.
And so we have bishops in the AME church, and I was pastoring in Alabama, in fact, pastoring in Birmingham, Alabama, and managing a $3 million grant from the Kellogg Foundation, Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation to fight racism in Selma, Alabama. And I felt a nudge in my spirit that God wanted me to do something. I felt like a divine pressure to go in a different direction. And typically, when I get those feelings, brother, I fight it. Like
Right.
I tend to want to do what I want to do, and I always lose those fights. And one night, I just prayed. I just submitted to God. I said, Lord, whatever it is you want me to do, you know, I just say yes. And 2 seconds later, I get off my knees, I get my phone, and I see I have a text message from the bishop over this area
Mhm.
asking me to come. And I was like, wow, I just said yes, talking
Right.
to God. And
Right.
I get a text message 2 seconds later asking me a question to something I've already committed to.
Right.
So I committed sight unseen. I didn't know where I was going,
Hmm.
didn't know how much money I was going to get paid. I didn't know anything about Oklahoma, let alone Tulsa.
Right.
I did know about the race massacre in Black Wall Street, but I didn't really equate that to Tulsa or Vernon especially.
Mm.
So that's how I ended up being here.
So you get to Tulsa, and when does it hit you? When does it hit you with the Black Wall Street massacre? We said, hold on. I'm going to take up this fight. This something about this isn't right. Was there one specific event that happened?
It was a compilation. When I came here in August 26, 2017,
Mm.
um, I had already known about, Black Wall Street, but I did not know the intimate history of the church as it related to Black Wall Street. And when I found out about, the history of our church members, that they were pillars in Black Wall Street community, that they were some of the architects of this beautiful place, and the fact that they died, right? Some of them never receiving justice, and those who survived, a lot of them were run out of town. And so I felt, even though they were before me, I still felt a strong connection to them and their struggle, them as being former members of the church. And so I took it personally. Um, and so I began to get a strong spiritual agitation to the fact that this justice has been denied. Um, so I began to look and try to see what other ministers, I should say, were speaking out on this from a faith perspective. Um, and I didn't see any. I saw preachers focusing on great things and great initiatives, which are
Right.
worthwhile.
Right.
But Father N is speaking to the issue of reparatory justice. Addressing this societal ill we know as racism. Um, and so God moved me to act. I was willing to go and support somebody else.
Mm.
And I did not see. In fact, I had people telling me, to not do what I'm doing, thinking that I was being a little too radical, and that I hadn't gotten permission from some of the, black leadership or whatever. And I don't move like that. I don't, when God gives me something to do, um, I don't wait on consensus from other people. And so I had to let people know, look, I'm not asking your permission. I'm inviting you to come and join alongside. Um, but if you don't want to come, I'm still gonna do it. And because I had already been given the authority to do it from the Most High. And so I walked in that, and I've been doing it ever since. And the first one I did, speaking up about reparations and repentance from this evilness, I call it an idolatry of white supremacy. It's America's first idol, um, and calling them out like every week. I'll be up there tomorrow Wednesday today, and it's just something that's put in me to do. And spoke out about the mass graves that I found. We in a Washington Post article that this city, doing after the massacre, they dumped bodies in mass graves, things that people have been fighting for so long, but just bringing a faith perspective to it, and just watching the Most High work and getting stuff done. It's really been spectacular.
Absolutely amazing. Let me ask you this. I've heard that before social media, people from Tulsa didn't even know about the Black Wall Street Massacre. Is that true? Has it been
Yeah.
taboo to teach that in the education system?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been very taboo. Nobody really talked about it though. The blacks, a lot of them didn't speak about it out of fear. You know, they did not want to risk another massacre happening again. Because after the massacre, black folks spoke up about it, but those few blacks who did, they ended up missing, right? They were hung or run out of town. And the white folks didn't talk about it because they had literally gotten away with murder. And so it was this taboo thing to talk about. For a while, people called it a myth, saying it never happened, saying it was just
What?
some urban legend that black people made up. Yeah. And so a lot of black folks got caught up into that, and it was not taught in school. So you had people who were born and raised in this city and didn't know anything about it, black and white.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe it. If you could explain for those of our viewers who may not fully understand what happened during the Black Wall Street Massacre, could you just briefly explain what exactly happened?
It was, before I even get to the massacre, let's talk about what precipitated the massacre, which was this place of economic genius for black people. 2 generations out of slavery, um, black individuals who were descendants of former slaves to white European settlers in the South, former slaves to Native American tribes, which a lot of people don't know that Native Americans own slaves. They don't like to talk about it as much, but Native Americans own slaves. In fact, the Trail of Tears in the 1830s, started by Andrew Jackson in the Indian Removal Act. It was black. It was the black slaves who cut down the trees on the Trail of Tears. You know, and so when they got here, black people, the descendants of those, they call them freedmen, people who were freed from by Native Americans. Um, they set up townships. They had land, because the U.S. government also divided the land of the Native Americans, and African Americans for the first time had their own land to grow crops on, and they prospered. And Oklahoma had the largest number of black townships in the country. In fact, it was at one point by E.B. McGate, founder of Langston University, thought they were going to start their own black state. So when the question of statehood arose in Oklahoma, a lot of the blacks did not want to join the Union because they knew if you join the Union, there will come Jim Crow. So you had a lot of black men and women around the time of the question of statehood say, we don't want to be a part of the United States of America. But of course, the overwhelming majority of the white settlers in Oklahoma did want to. And but the black people still thrive. And once oil was discovered in Oklahoma at the Glenpool site, that brought in more money to the region. And you had black people who had already gained wealth from having an agrarian society, an agrarian culture. They now could parlay the money they raised off the crops to starting their own business. And so they began to have a lot of businesses, service-oriented businesses like transportation, like hotels, like theaters. And then you had professional businesses like banks and lawyers' offices and doctors' offices and mechanic shops. You had a thriving middle and upper class. You had, in a population of 10,000 black people in Greenwood, you had 6 families who own their own airplanes. I can't tell you a community today with of 10,000 people where 6 families own their own airplanes. And mind you, this is in 1921 when you're good to have an automobile, right? You balling if you have an automobile in 1921 and you black, but you got an airplane. That's just stupid
$20
money,
in your
man.
pocket.
That's just like, yeah, you know. And so we had a self-contained economy. And dear brother, that drove white folks crazy, right? Because just as the blacks were 2 generations out of slavery, the whites were 2 generations out of slavery. And they were descendants of slave owners. They were descendants of overseers. They were descendants of whites who saw black people as chattel, as a commodity. So it blew their minds to see black people prosper because they were taught that black people were inferior. They were taught that black people were good for nothing. They were taught that white people could only help black folks survive, that black people could not make it on their own. But here you have Greenwood, and it's like, these folk are doing great without us. What's going on? You know, and so oftentimes, as I say in my speeches across the country, you know, when sensible people, when they have been raised with a lie, and that lie meets the truth, sensible people discard that lie and accept the truth, right? But people who are white supremacists, who believe that only good can come from their race and nobody else, when that lie meets the truth, they seek to discard it. They have to destroy it. And that's what happened here in Tulsa, 1921. And so, and the light that started the fire that was already, you know, simmering, but the light that really exploded the fire was the accusation of Dick Rowland assaulted Sarah Page on the elevator, which we've all found to not be true. She never pressed charges. In fact, a descendant of Dick Rowland, who's coming out with her own book pretty soon, states that Dick Rowland and Sarah Page, after the massacre, left Tulsa and got married. So all this mess over nothing, right? And so, but the black men, because in that time period, interracial couples couldn't date in white areas, but they could in on the black side of town. So when the black folks heard that Dick Rowland was arrested for assaulting Sarah Page, all of them knew it wasn't true, right? So they went down to the courthouse to make sure that he was taken care of, because there was a lynch mob that assembled outside the courthouse. And so these black men, former veterans of World War, come down to help law enforcement. They come to help the sheriff enforce the law, to keep the peace in the face of thousands of white men who had guns. The sheriff tells the black man, hey, I don't need your help. Go back to Greenwood. He doesn't say anything to these white people who are trying to bum rush his county jail, but he tells the black men to go away. And on the way back to Greenwood, one of the white men approaches one of the black men who came to help the sheriff and to help protect Dick Rowland. One of the white men says, what are you doing with that gun? Nigger, right? But of course he didn't spell it. Probably couldn't even spell. And the black man said, it's my gun. I use it if I have to. And that was an affront to the white man. That's why I laugh at people when they talk about, you know, this whole Second Amendment issue. This country's never wanted guns in the hands of black men, ever. You know, it's always been. In fact, when it's documented, when black men enlisted to fight in the war, there was a huge conversation about the people, the generals, not wanting to give black men guns. They just didn't. And so this white vigilante tries to take the gun from this black man, right? And that didn't go so well. The gun went off, hit the white man. He didn't die, but after he was shot, literally all hell breaks loose, and a gunfire ensues. And to give the black men credit, they put up a good fight for a while, but after the airplanes got involved and they started dropping incendiary devices from the air, it became a massacre, and they started going to people's houses, shooting folks' houses, killing women, killing children, killing the elderly, robbing them at their house at gunpoint, forcing them to go to internment camps where they stayed until a white person could come and vouch for them. And so the men stayed a lot longer than the women because a lot of the men worked for themselves. They didn't have a white person to vouch for them. And so while the men were in the internment camps, a lot of the women got raped. And the only way the men could get out was to agree sometimes to serve white men for free. It was a terrible moment. And then a lot of them after the massacre, they froze during the wintertime. And the bodies were dumped in mass graves. Houses were burned to the ground. No insurance claim was ever paid. Not even for the church that I pastor. Our insurance claim wasn't even paid because they didn't want us to rebuild. And it was the largest and worst race massacre in American history, where estimated over 300 people were killed, over 600 businesses were destroyed, over 1,256 homes demolished, all in 18 hours. All in 18 hours. It was the first time in American history that airplanes were used to drop bombs on American soil. And the first perpetrators of that crime were white men, and the first victims were Black people.
Thank you for sharing that with us, sir. Black Wall Street is one of those stories when you first heard about it, it made you angry. It made you angry for a lot of reasons. A few of the reasons for me was, number one, that it happened. You was angry that it happened. The second reason you was angry is, why haven't I learned about this? And that's what really put a fire in you. It's why are they not telling us of these wonderful, successful, Black thriving communities that we had, from Black Wall Street to Rosewood, all over the nation? We had thriving Black communities, but they left us with the idea that the only communities we had was the hood. So, I really think that it's important that we share the true facts of what happened on Black Wall Street. All those lives and all that property was lost, and no reparations was paid. No reparations was paid for any of that destruction. Why is it important for our generation to keep on fighting for this justice of reparations, especially when it comes to Tulsa? And why is it important for us to not let this go?
Yeah, your commentary is absolutely spot on. What happened in Tulsa is not even unique to Tulsa. From 1919 to 1925, there was a total of over 52 race massacres where Black economic enterprise zones, aka Black Wall Streets, were destroyed by white militias, right? And none of those folks were charged with crimes. None of those places received reparations, except now recently for Rosewood. And so I think that it's important for us to understand that this is a system of white supremacy. This is a system where racism rules, right? And because sometimes people always say, well, that happened back then, why can't you just get over it? Well, we compound the problem by not addressing it. So guess what? By not advocating, by not participating in reparatory justice as a society, we are compounding the problem that happened 1919, 1921, 1619. We're compounding the problem. It's kind of like you get shot in the arm, or I like Malcolm X's analogy, you get stabbed in the back, and So they take it, they decide to take the knife out a few inches, but the knife's still in you. And they tell you to heal and get over it. And then you have some people who come and speak up and say, hey, get this knife out my back. And so now they finally get the knife out your back. I'm adding on his paraphrase. I'm adding on his analogy. And now the knife is out of your back, but you're bleeding. You're bleeding. And they're saying, well, at least you don't have a knife in your back anymore. What are you complaining about? Why don't you get over it? But no, now that I'm bleeding, infection can set in. And every day you go without taking care of that wound, you are compounding the problem. And so we live in a generation now that says, well, they didn't put the knife in our back, but George Floyd would disagree with that. Eric Garner would disagree with that. Trayvon Martin would disagree with that. Terrence Crutch would disagree with that. But we live in but Sandra Bland would disagree with that. Breonna Taylor would disagree with that. But we live in a generation that acts as though there are no more racist acts occurring, and that people like me, we only want to bring up the past, and therefore reparations is not needed anymore because the knife is out the back. Yeah, the knife may be out the back, and that's even up for debate, but the wound is still there and has never been healed. And you don't heal a wound by ignoring it. You heal a wound by treating the wound and taking care of the wound. And so reparations is definitely needed because as a country, we have still yet to heal. And healing doesn't mean ignoring it, because that's what people always say. You just ignore it, don't talk about it. We have seen how that works, and that just makes the problems fester. It's past time that we address and heal and take care of this wound and treat it, and that is by repairing it, and that's reparations.
I agree with you 100%, 100%, sir, on every single issue. That was a profound, profound response. What is it about you specifically that makes you want to take up this fight?
That's a great question. I'm just not built to ignore injustice, especially as it relates to my people who suffered. I feel the worst form of slavery in the history of the world, who suffered through Jim Crow, a Jim Crow that was so bad that even Adolf Hitler said that was too harsh for them to implement in Germany. I mean, let that sink in for a moment. Adolf Hitler, Nazi, said our form of Jim Crow in America was too harsh for them to implement. And now we have things such as mass incarceration, the so-called war on drugs. We've had redlining. Black people in this country suffer so much. I can't. And like you, I mean, you people who have made it and have become successful in life. People always say, well, why do you even care? You made it. You got yours. I'm not anywhere near the success that you are, but I'm just not built to ignore people where I come from, who are in similar situations that I can relate to. Even if I'm not currently in those situations, I can still relate to it. And so I can't hardly rest, man. To be completely honest, this stuff, it drives me. I'm a huge Kobe Bryant fan. May he rest in peace. And I just loved his Mamba mentality of how it seemed like he was possessed to want to meet a certain goal, and that's how I feel about social justice. Like, I really feel like this has to happen, and I'm gonna die trying. I'm gonna die trying to make it happen.
Man, brother, I mean, hey, I don't know, we might be cousins or something, man, because we on the same wavelength. How do you deal with the Black people who say, man, we ain't never gonna get reparations, or we don't need reparations? I can almost expect that from some white folk. You can expect that from some white folk, but how do you deal with it when it's your own people saying that?
It's nauseating. It really is. but it also reminds me of why we need even more. Black people, we have been impacted by white supremacy just as much as white folks have, and a lot of us don't like to admit it. But a lot of Black people suffer from an inferiority complex. Like they don't, and we have become desensitized to our own suffering. So we don't think that we deserve it because we have bought in hook, line, and sinker to white supremacist ideology that our suffering is not important, you know, that our bodies are not important, that our rights are not important. Meanwhile, every other community has gotten reparations. Every other community in this country that this country has afflicted has gotten something, and still not enough, but has gotten something, for their suffering. Japanese Americans got it. Got during a Republican president, Ronald Reagan, got $20,000+ per family, for being placed in internment camps during World War when the Japanese government attacked us at Pearl Harbor. Japanese country attacked us at Pearl Harbor. We gave reparations, not enough, to the Hawaiian Americans. We gave it. We still have treaties that we honor. We've never given even a treaty to African Americans, but we have treaties. We broke a lot of them, but we at least try to keep some to the Native American tribes who own slaves, right? And a lot of the tribes haven't even done right by their own slaves. But nobody likes to talk about that. We appropriate money every year to the Jewish Holocaust survivors. That was in Germany, but we still support that, right? As a country, nobody's saying we shouldn't. But the only time there's a problem with support reparations is when it comes to Black folks. Now, I support all those cases of repair. So Hawaiian Americans, Japanese Americans, I support it. For the Jewish Americans, I support it. For Native American tribes. But one group we give reparations to, I will never support. This country, these so-called United States, which really are the divided states of America, gave reparations to the Confederacy, who committed treason and rebelled against this government during the Civil War. We gave them reparations. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. But at that university, the University of Alabama received reparations from the United States government in the year 1870. They gave land that the university could sell to rebuild the campus after what happened to them during the Civil War. I took classes in the very building that was rebuilt. And on the building, it has a plaque. They probably took it down now because I talk about it all the time. On the building is a plaque to say this building was built in reparations to the South for the Civil War. If we can pay reparations to the Confederacy, why in the world cannot we pay it to the slaves that built this country and to Black folks that have been afflicted by this country? Everywhere Black people have lived, we've been under attack. In our Black Wall Street areas, we've been under attack. Even today in our local neighborhoods, in our hoods, we under attack. Every night there is an assault on some Black life in a hood in America. Everywhere we've ever tried to live, we've been under attack. We have never gotten peace in this country. And on top of that, we give reparations to people every day. God forbid somebody gets in a car accident today. They're going to call their insurance company to file a claim. Their insurance company is going to get in contact with the other person's insurance company to repair the car. If we can repair a car, if you can file a claim to repair a car, why can't you repair a person or a community or people that just so happen to have beautiful Black skin? So to me, this country has never had a problem with reparations. This country has only had a problem with reparations to Black people. So when I meet Black people who talk about why we even need it, I laugh and in sincerity, I say, do you not realize that every other group in this country that's been afflicted and has pressed their claim has received reparations? But you mean to tell me, so it's okay for your tax dollars to go pay reparations to Japanese Americans? It's okay for your tax dollars to go and pay reparations. We even are repairing Afghanistan and the so-called Middle East after we bombed them after 9/11. We are building libraries and schools in Afghanistan right now. We are repairing countries that we have bombed. We repaired Japan after we bombed them in Hiroshima. We repaired West Germany after the World War. But so you mean to tell me your tax dollars can go and repair other countries, build other schools, build other libraries, build other hospitals, but you don't want your same tax dollars to go and repair your own community? That is a mental illness of called self-hatred. That really is a vestige of slavery and colonialism and definitely white supremacy.
And the thing about reparations is that everybody wants to talk about everything else but reparations. But when you look at other nations
Yes.
that suffer crimes of inhumanity,
Yes.
reparations was the first thing they sought after they got done with their slavery or concentration camps. But with us, it's like, you know, we're asking for a handout or something. And it's a shame because, you know, we all see the truth. You know, we see that we're supposed to deserve reparations. Like you can see a tree outside, you know, like you can see a bird in the sky. If you can see a bird in the sky, you can honestly see that we deserve reparations. But, you know, we understand this is a power thing. They don't want to let go of that power. And they want us, they want us to need them. They don't want us to be, as you said, you said it brilliantly during your description of Black Wall Street. You were saying that the white people, they felt that Black people couldn't do it without them. So for us to do it on our own, that does something to them. That does something to their psyche. And, you know, it's I guess it's a hard reality to understand when the people that you had chains around, now they have businesses more successful than you. Their house is bigger than yours. They own more acre than yours. Their car is nicer than yours. So I'm sure it's troubling for them.
That's right.
I want to ask you this. We call this country the land of the free and the land of democracy. But the one issue that will fully liberate Black people is reparations, and America won't honor that. What are we going to do to fully liberate our people when we live in a society that don't care, don't even want to acknowledge? How do we get through that and still obtain reparations?
I think the first thing we must understand in this country is that we are in the process of being free. Freedom is not free, and freedom is something you have to fight for. This country fought to be free from the shackles of British monarchy. That wasn't given freely. And every community, every ethnic group in this country, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, that's not white, has had to fight for their liberation. Black people, we fought for our liberation. We fought for liberation from chattel slavery. My great-great-great-great-grandfather, Allen Birdsong, in Tennessee, believe it or not, fought for the Union Army. We have to get out this notion that this country gave us anything. We fought and have to fight for everything we get. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, helped fight for liberation from slavery. We had to fight after slavery for just to be recognized as citizens. 14th Amendment. We had to fight during
the civil rights movement. We had people before the civil rights movement. We had people like W.E.B. Du Bois who had to fight for us to even recognize the true genius of ourselves. We every generation, I believe, the Most High has sent fighters, champions for a cause. And dear brother, we just got the right to vote in 1965.
I always say
My
that.
parents were born before then.
I always say that before
this,
we even deal with, there's reparations for slavery, but we got to deal with reparations for Jim Crow as well. The psychological damage, the psychological trauma.
Exactly.
As
man, my parents. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. Man, my parents vividly remember seeing colored water fountains and white only water fountains and going into the back of restaurants, right? We act as though we act as though we have been free just as long as white folks have, and that's just not the case. And so I think we have to fight for reparations because it is the last leg of our freedom movement, right? That other folks can do. Now there's still a struggle for freedom within our own selves. There's a repair we need to do within our own psyche. As Malcolm, as Malik Shabazz would say, we've broken the shackles of chattel slavery, but now we must break the shackles of mental enslavement, which will take a lot longer than anything the government could ever do. But let's fight for everything that this country owes us. And yes, I use the word owe us because we worked for over 250 years for free. We did not get the GI Bill when we came back. We were denied our right to vote up until 1965. And now you have, just this year alone, brother, you have 28 states trying to pass 106 voter suppression laws. 106. Just this legislative session, state legislatures across the country have tried to pass 106 voter suppression laws. One of them in Oklahoma states that everybody has to re-register to vote before the next election. What kind of sense does that make? So even the right to vote that we have is in jeopardy. The pre-clearance clause of the 1965 Voting Rights Act has expired, and the Supreme Court did not renew it in Shelby versus Alabama. We are still in the fight, and so I believe that this reparations movement is the last leg, but we unfortunately have lost battlefield on other fronts, such as voting, such as land ownership and access to capital. And so I really, for any Black person that thinks that we have arrived as a people, don't let the few outliers fool you. We as a people have yet to overcome. And reparations is needed, is vitally needed to help us gain in that area.
Yeah, I think there's an attack on the Black vote because they see what happens when we unite. They see the power of Black people when we decide to plan something and execute it. They just saw that with the last election. And I love the fact that we can unite and vote for a candidate. But my personal stance, and this is just me talking, if a candidate ain't ready to pay for reparations, I don't know if he's worthy of the Black vote, because I feel like we done talked about everything. We done went from A to Z, but the one thing we haven't done is reparations. That's the one thing we haven't done. And it's just like, it's like you're trying to start a car and you got all these different liquids. You got water, you got Kool-Aid, you got lemon juice, and you trying everything except the gasoline. Like, can we try to use this gasoline to really get this automobile going? And it's just a tragedy, because You know, America promotes herself as the good guys. It's the good guys. We're the good guys. They promote themselves as defender of justice. Well, if you are that, then be that. You know, if you're gonna claim that you are this superhero that's about good and equality, then we have to deal with this issue first. We can't skip over it because you didn't skip over it with any other group. Every other group that came out of slavery on Friday, they had reparations on Saturday, you know? So these are the issues we have to talk about. I'm so just, again, fortunate to have you on this show. And if I could, what is a plan to obtain reparations? How do we get there?
We have to, and you alluded to it eloquently a few moments ago. I think Black people, and I love us because we are a loving people, and we support any and everybody that's oppressed sometimes. But oftentimes we forget to advocate for our own issues. And one plan to get there is Black people need to become, and I don't want to just say single issue voters, but we need to highly highlight reparations in every political forum in this country. So what does that mean? That means that I don't care what people are running for. One question that should be asked: if somebody's speaking at your church for anything, campaign wise, if somebody is come to your front door to pass out push cards, any candidate, they could be running for dog catcher. You need to know what their view is on reparations. We've seen cities, so city councilors can't say, well, that's not in my area. We've seen cities like Evanston, Illinois, pass reparation initiatives. We've seen colleges, like Georgetown, support and pass reparations initiatives. We need to make sure that if you want our vote as a community, as other communities do, you cannot expect to go to a Latin American political group, without having to answer about your views on immigration reform. You just can't. You can't expect that. They will ask you that, and they should. But why is it when you come to a Black political organization, we ask you about everything from potholes in the street lights in the neighborhood park. We ask you about getting Popeyes at the next traffic light, but hardly ever ask candidates about reparations. To me, I think we need to be more conscious about our suffering, right? And not let these candidates get off the hook, and not let people tell you, well, that's impossible, so why are you talking about it? That won't make sense. How are you going to implement it? You don't ask other communities that question. If they have a concern, they raise it and you find a way to meet it. Period, point blank. When it comes to Black people, when we ask politicians questions, those who are brave enough to do so, we allow politicians to come back and turn a question on us and say, well, how are you going to do it? Well, you don't ask other communities those questions. It's your job as an elected official. You want my vote, you figure it out. Period. Otherwise, if you can't, we'll find somebody who will.
Again, I agree with you 100%, Pastor. This is an issue. It ain't no wiggle room here. We're not gonna retreat from this issue. This isn't something we're gonna wake up one day and say, I don't want to fight for reparations no more. It's impossible. And one of the reasons that you alluded to it earlier, you said you're a man that you can't ignore injustices. And part of the reason why you're like that is because we was raised in a society with Batman and Superman, and everybody was fighting for justice. So we are programmed
That's right.
We as a culture, we are
Justice League, you know?
programmed to fight for justice. See, as soon as we started watching Batman and we was kids eating cereal, we was like, hey, it's great to do the good thing. But then when we become adults,
That's right.
and we see the real world, we see, oh, okay, it was just a facade. You know, it's a fantasy because this isn't right, you know, and it's a shame because it feels like to me that Black America wants America to be better than America is willing to be. And you can't really wrap your head around that because, you know, when you look at the stereotypical patriot, you think of the white American, but it's like, who wants America to be better than somebody who wants reparations, because you think, and this is another thing I think about, do you think Black people want to talk about racism every day? Do you think we want to talk about reparations every day? Do you think we get a kick out of this? No, we have to take on this fight because the work is not done. Dr. King, one of his last fights with the Poor People's Campaign, he was bringing up the issue of reparations. He said, we coming to Washington to get our check. The work was not done. And we, I believe, are the generation to finish it. Sir, let me ask you, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh, I keep going back to this evening in Tuskegee. I had to be about 12 years of age. And we had just finished basketball practice. I was playing YMCA basketball. Probably was younger than 12. I think I was 11 or 12, matter of fact. And we were outside, just finished, about to go home. And I never forget this wino comes around. And I mean, you could tell he had a few drinks, he had tossed back. And all my basketball teammates were kind of laughing and trying to joke on him. And they ran away because they were afraid. And this brother told me, I stayed, you know, because I believe, brother, you can learn from anybody. You know, I just really believe that everybody is an expert in their own life. And this brother told me, I'll never forget it, with a bottle in his hand. He said, young blood, he said, man, don't be like me. He said, I was once a young man like you. He said, I want you to stay in school. I want you to read all you can. I want you to study. And I want you to be somebody in life. I don't know that man's name. I don't know anything about him besides me meeting him that evening. But I remember those words. And I'm sure that if I think longer, I could find some more eloquent quotes that somebody gave me in my life. My dad has given me plenty. My grandmother's given me plenty. My mom has given me plenty. But that quote that evening has stuck to me. And it has given me the drive to always want to learn and to always want to help everybody. Because I got one of my best quotes in life from a drunk, a wino, a homeless person, but he was a child of God, a person made in God's image. And he had wisdom that rivaled anything I ever got from a college professor. And yeah, that stuck. So yeah, that's one of the best quotes I've gotten in life.
If you could change one thing about this society, what would it be?
I would change how we are so afraid of Black people in particular Black men, most demonized demographic in the world are Black men. And I would change, I would get rid of all vestiges of white supremacy. And the key enemy of white supremacy is Black men. And you see it in culture. You saw it even in Birth of a Nation. So yeah, I would change that. I think that we've lost, especially in this country, more lives, and have allowed for so many untapped potential to go to waste, simply because of the color of somebody's skin. Yeah, that's one thing I definitely would change, and I would try to increase. As I take that away, I would increase the love we have in this world. Love that is not in ignorance of truth, but love that is aware of truth, and love that seeks to share truth, even truth to power.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. What is one message that you have for Black America?
I believe that our best days are ahead. I believe that God is raising up a generation of freedom fighters, who are not afraid. But we need to understand that we can be our best asset, and also we could be, if we don't work together, our worst enemy, our own worst enemy. In the words of Dick Gregory, a lot of times people categorize us as crabs in a barrel, and they always pull each other down. But crabs only do that in a barrel. If you ever go out to the ocean, you don't see crabs pulling each other down, because in the ocean, they're in their natural habitat. In this country, we in a barrel. It's not our natural habitat. They've made it uncomfortable for us to exist. They put clamps, they tie our hands together, right? And I believe one message I would have for our community, for Black America, is to not allow this society to put you in a barrel. Because in a barrel, you will pull each other down. But in your native habitat, your native environment, an environment that's conducive for your life, you won't.
That's a great answer, sir.
So just seek to be free, and that freedom starts in the mind first. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, I'm just saying that's a great answer. And I believe it's truly going to take good brothers such as you and myself and all the good brothers in America that really and truly feel that we have to take this to another level. Those of us who really want justice for our people, we have to come to the same understanding that until reparations is paid, America cannot be the country that she promotes herself to be. And we want that. Again, all we're saying is, America, please be the country that you claim to be. And I'm honored, sir, to have you on. I'm grateful, and I just can't. I can't even put it into words how much I appreciate your time. I'm very excited to continue following your journey, and me and you, we're gonna be linking up because you have your people that I have my people I know, and brothers and sisters, you have to understand this is what it's about. Good Black people networking. What can you bring to the table? What can I bring to the table? Because one thing that we have to also stop doing is stop thinking you can do everything by yourself. You know, it's okay to network with people. It's okay to
Amen.
reach out with people, especially if you want the same thing. Wouldn't it be a shame that a brother in Florida that's fighting for reparations for Black Americans and a brother in Tulsa fighting for Black people and reparations, we wouldn't unite? Of course we're going to unite. God wouldn't have it no other way. So this is God. This is God's doing. This is the Most High's doing, and I'm thankful, brother, for your time, and I appreciate you. And we're gonna have you back. We're gonna have you back because we're not done with this. This issue of reparations, we're not gonna stop talking about it until it's settled, and we're just gonna keep it going. So, sir, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you.
King, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. You blessed me today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Brother Rashad.
They could be running for dog catcher. You need to know what their view is on reparations.